Hey, happy Thursday here on the Wagertalk YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter channels. Kelly Stewart bringing in Carmine Bianco, talk all things NHL playoffs tonight. Welcome in, Carmine. Got a quick housekeeping note. Do not forget, I'm going to be at Jake and Joe's in Braintree on Saturday for the Final Four with Viva Tequila Seltzer. Come in, hang out if you're in the area. We're going to have ourselves some Vivas. Carmine, let's just get right into it. This is the last day of the regular season for the NHL. So we've got a lot of homework to do, and you're going to help us out. Guys, if you have a question for Carmine, make sure you drop it in the chat, because last night's chat was pretty boring. I called the show early. You guys were pretty quiet.
Well, the season ends on April the 18th. That's the end of the regular season. And the last 4 days, it's going to be like decision day, 4 days in a row. They're the last 4 days of the NHL season, the Monday to Thursday. There are so many games that are going to decide playoff spots. It's gonna be great. It literally is. Each night is like I hate to put it in basketball terms, Kelly, but each night is going to be like a March Madness Final Four. Literally, one team is going to get into the playoffs. One team's going to get eliminated. The way the rest of the season is shaping up, that's how it's looking, with so many races and so many teams trying to get in, and teams looking to stay in. But the last 4 days are going to be absolutely wild.
Sorry, I'm looking at the programming note from our producer, and he said, Carmine, would you like to come on Thursday to talk the end of the regular season? So I just assumed those two things were together. Not going to lie, Carmine, I might have watched about 5 hockey games thus far this year. I'm excited for the playoffs, and I know you're going to get us ready for them. A couple of quick notes I have here, and what I want to talk about is what we should be looking at going into the playoffs. So, let's set the scene before we get into the teams we're looking to bet on. Let's look at what kind of teams we're looking for and who you think can actually go on big runs here. Maybe spring an upset or two.
Yeah, let's look at a couple teams. I think a team that's set to make a run. Coming into the season, I thought the two best teams in the league, or teams that would eventually rise to the top, were the Dallas Stars and the Carolina Hurricanes. And the Dallas Stars are sitting atop the West right now, 105 points. 1 point away from the New York Rangers, who are in the East for the President's Trophy, and that's a futures we're going to talk about in a second. And then Carolina, they started miserably at the beginning of the season. They couldn't play defense. They were allowing a ton of goals. They had obviously injuries to their best goalie, Freddie Anderson, um, uh, who was left out of the lineup because he had blood clotting problems. And so the team elected to shelve him for about 4 or 5 months. He only came back about a month and a half ago. But they're the cream that's rising to the top as well too right now. They're at 101 points, 5 back of the Rangers, who have been good from start to finish. But I think Carolina is built with the moves they made in the offseason, bringing in some defensemen like Orlov, and the moves they made at the trade deadline and picking up from Pittsburgh, Gunsel. They are a very good team, and especially if they can somehow manage to get home ice throughout the playoffs, or at least until the Eastern Conference Finals, should they, let's say, meet um, um, the Rangers, which would probably happen in the semifinals. They're going to be awfully tough to beat. This is a very good Hurricanes team. I know a lot of people aren't convinced that Rod Brindamore, their coach, is the guy who get them to the next level, but I think he is. So I think they're best set up, the Carolina Hurricanes, to make a run at the Stanley Cup. A sleeper, and it's tough to call a team that has won the Stanley Cup twice in the last 4 years as a sleeper, but the Tampa Bay Lightning. Normally, the Tampa Bay Lightning, Kelly, are locked up as far as a playoff spot going into the final month of the season. But this is a Tampa team that struggled at times, and they've had to do what Florida did last year, which is play the last month like it's the playoffs, to secure enough points to make sure they're not going into that final week of the season trying to avoid not making the playoffs. And they're playing some fantastic hockey. They were 9-2-1 going into their last game against Toronto. Went to Toronto, completely dominated the Leafs, and now they're 10-2-1, and in a very good spot. Average age of this team, 29 years old, so they're not an old team. Pittsburgh, 31 and a half, is the oldest team. And Tampa Bay, I think they're the this year they're the version of last year's Florida Panthers, who springboarded the final 30 days, a very good run into the playoffs, and then knocked off teams. And they have so much playoff experience and Stanley Cup experience on that team, Kelly. I think they make a very good run, and you can get a very good price on them to do so.
Yeah, the Lightning were so fun my first year living in Florida, getting their second Stanley Cup. I really enjoyed watching that. Then the next year they lost to Colorado. Let's see if they can't make a run here, Carmine. Really quickly, promo code CARM30 is going to get you $30 off a 7-day all access pass from Carmine Bianco. And we have a question from YouTube. Let's see what Vegas DJ has to say. Do you think my Golden Knights could be sneaky in the playoffs? Carmine, I've got your list here. And oh boy, the Golden Knights are not on it.
Yeah, well, they're not on my. We're going to go through like power rankings in a second of top 5 teams, and these are 5 teams. I don't want to trigger anybody. You can put the pun in, especially Adam, but you can mix those 5 teams any way you want, and pick them out of a hat, and they can easily be at the top of the power rankings. But as far as the Vegas Golden Knights are, the Knights struggled a bit. One of the problems right now with the Knights is, and I think that this team, top to bottom, is a very good team. They've got some guys on the injury reserve. Obviously, Mark Stone is a big miss. Whether he comes off, I think it was the lacerated kidney, whether he comes off the long-term injury reserve by playoff time remains to be seen. I think the more troubling thing for the Vegas Golden Knights is the fact that Aiden Hill has struggled of late, which has put the emphasis on Logan Thompson being the number 1 goalie. Aiden Hill was the guy who took over last year late in the season, took him into the playoffs, and the guy just absolutely stood on his head, and they won the cup. They're the defending cup champions. So you always have to respect the defending cup champions. But right now they sit in 6th spot, which means that they would be on the road as the 3rd seed in the Pacific right now. They would be playing the Edmonton Oilers in the first round. Unless the Oilers are able to catch Vancouver, then they play Vancouver in the first round. But it looks like we're heading to an Edmonton and Vegas one. And if there's goaltending issues in Vegas, Edmonton's not the team you want to play, especially with Connor McDavid, or McJesus as they call him, Draisaitl,
McJesus is a
and
good
the
one.
rest of the
I like that one.
players on the team. Yeah, that's what they
That's
call
a
him.
good
And then
nickname. I
Zach
don't know why.
Hyman. Zach Hyman, Zach Hyman, 50 goals for this guy. When you play on the Oilers and you play with that talent, with a guy like McDavid, you're going to get some goals. And a lot of Hyman's goals have come from that 5 to 10 feet in front of the net, because McDavid just puts it on his stick at the most opportune times, and he's just scoring. God bless him. It's like what Gretzky did for guys like Dave Semenko back in the early '80s when he was playing.
All right. I love it. Carmine, one of the things that I always think is funny whenever I hear, do you know where standing on his head originated from?
I I don't.
I
Do
don't
you
either.
know where
That's why I'm
it came
asking
from?
you.
I don't.
No.
I
I always
don't.
laugh whenever I hear it. And I'm like, who the heck started that? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, I guess it's because it's such a great accomplishment to be able to stand on your head, and maybe it is. Maybe someone on YouTube in the comment section can let us know. Google
Yeah.
standing on your head, or on our Instagram. But Kelly, it's like 86 for people who worked in restaurants, and they would say 86 this item from the menu. Um, I learned this about 10 years ago, what 86 meant. Do you know where 86 came from? If you don't,
No.
I'm
And I
about to
worked in
tell
a
you.
lot. I worked in a lot of restaurants and
Yes.
bars.
Here's where 86 come from. When you wanted to eliminate something from the menu, the mob, back in the days of Vegas, when the mob was there, if they wanted to get rid of someone, they drove 8 miles out and buried him 6 feet down. And that's where 86 came from.
Okay, well, that's terrible. So anyway, on a lighter note, we
But
got
it's
another
true.
question from YouTube. Carmine always with the
But it's
fun
true.
facts. Let's see.
It is true,
Jonesy,
though.
Panthers and Senators over, Carmine. Is that for tonight's game, I'm guessing?
Yes, it is. It is, and Florida's got to start to turn it around, as I mentioned, and I think they will. They've got a very favorable schedule. This is a team that they're doing the opposite of what they did last year. So the last 30 days of last year, they were playing playoff hockey, winning an unbelievable amount of games, and they squeaked into the playoffs. I think on the last night of the season to get in there, and then we just went on an insane run, kind of like what I think Tampa Bay could possibly do in a tough Eastern Conference. I think they learned from that, and the fact that they're already guaranteed a playoff spot, and they know they have a type of team that plays very good defense. That they can act, that at this point here, they're trying to protect their team because by the time they met Vegas in the Stanley Cup Finals, they were missing 6 to 8 players. Guys were injured. Um, that the toll of those 30 days and then the playoffs, it just damaged that team that they never had a fighting chance against Dallas. I think now the idea is for Florida to get to the finish line and get into the playoffs with a healthy team. And I think that's what they're trying to do. So I don't think they're playing as tough defensively as we've seen them play. They went through a stretch of like 16 games, I think, where they stayed under the total. And now of late, a lot of their games are going over the total. Ottawa's a team that has been playing spoiler, won 6 straight games again, and 3 of them against teams trying to make it into the playoffs. They lose the other night to Minnesota, 3-2 in Minnesota. Minnesota's a defensive team. I think there's a good chance we see some pond hockey in Ottawa tonight. There's another phrase for you, Kelly, pond hockey, and it normally leads to goals.
At least I know
I think
that one.
Florida's the right side to take tonight. Yes, I think Florida's the right side tonight. I'll be happy with like a 5-3 final for Florida. The over bettors get their money. The Florida bettors, like myself, get the money, and we're all happy.
I like it when we're all happy. If you guys have a question for Carmine, drop it in the chat. We got one from Instagram. They want to know about the Flames Jets total.
See, this is pretty much a game that I would likely stay away from as far as the total. The Jets are a very good defensive team. They've been, if you bet Jets unders all season long, you've made money. They come off a win, and it was a high-scoring win by Jet standards against the LA Kings. I think the two best defensive teams in the Western Conference get together and they play a 4-3 game. That just shows you how totals are in the last couple of weeks of the season. They are, for lack of a better word, they're completely hit or miss. I just don't like taking them. But you look at the games prior to that, Winnipeg lose 3-2, stays under. They lose 4-1 to Vegas, stays under. Play the Oilers. Those games normally will go over, 4-3 game. 3-0, they lose to Washington. A lot of low-scoring games. And the Flames are done. The Flames are toast. As far as their season goes. So they're just playing out the string. So you just don't know if they're even willing to play any any defense at this point. Guys don't want to get injured. Guys don't want to block pucks. When you know your season is done, the last thing you want to do as a defenseman or a forward in your own zone is go down in front of a guy who's firing the puck at the net at like 90 miles an hour. You don't want that. You just want to finish off your 5 or 6 games, grab the golf clubs, head to Florida, and play some golf. So I don't think we get much out of Calgary tonight. I think Winnipeg is the right side here, and we as far as the total is, I would lean to the over just because of the fact that I don't think Calgary wants to play any defense at this point. But you need both teams to score in order to get over the total. We saw it with Edmonton and Dallas last night, 5-0 at the end of the second period for Dallas. Game finishes 5-0. Edmonton brought nothing to the table. So those are the pitfalls of betting totals sometimes.
Yeah, that sounds really frustrating, Carm. Any other teams that you think may have just cashed it in, if you will, this last couple weeks?
I think Anaheim has. Anaheim, they won their last game against the aforementioned Calgary Flames in Calgary, and they win that game 5-3. But they're at the bottom of the standings. You got teams like Chicago's been playing some competitive hockey of late. The Sharks. Some of these bottom feeders have won some games over the last over the last week or so, where they were plus 250, 260. Kel, you'll love those numbers. I think on Saturday night, the Sharks won, the Blackhawks won, and there was another team and Ottawa Senators won. Each team was Ottawa was the lowest at plus 180. The other two teams were plus 250 in their games. That's one of your Kelly money line parlays that would have paid like about 80 to 1 on that ticket in all likelihood. Other teams that have given it up, it seems like the Philadelphia Flyers have given it up, even though they're in a playoff spot right now. They just can't get out of their own way. They're losing games and they're losing them at big clips right now. But at some point, they're going to turn it around. It is tough to fade some of these lower. It's tough to fade the bottom feeders because of the prices that you have to lay. So taking a dog every once in a while is not a bad option. Do you want me
We
to go
got
into my
another
top
question.
five, Kel?
Yeah, let
Sure,
me
go
get this
ahead.
last question from YouTube, and then we'll get into your top five. You cannot end the show without your patented shots on goal prop for the day, Carm.
Ooh, okay. You caught me for a loop on that one, guys. Um, it is tough because I always tend to look at what team allows a lot of shots on goal. And when you look at teams, you look at teams like the San Jose Sharks, who allow a lot of shots on goal. And they're obviously in LA tonight. They're playing the Kings, but the Kings are on the second of a back-to-back. So you look at I would normally look at Kings players at home because it's still a very important game for them. But they're getting overpriced, and it's because of the amount of shots on goal that these teams allow. You have a guy like Trevor Moore. His price should be, over 2.5 shots on goal, minus 120. But places like DK are making you pay 166 on that. You look at someone like any of them, like even someone like a Kevin Fiala, who should be over 2.5, minus 115, minus 120. They're making you pay 45 cents. Vig, books are adjusting, and I think we're getting priced out of the player props. The one guy who's very good at this, Kel, and for you guys out there, is Andy Lang. Andy is absolutely, you got to give credit where credit is due. Andy Lang absolutely killing it with NHL props. He just knows the right ones, how to find them. And even if some are a little too viggy, I'm going to use that word. I just created a new word. A little too viggy. Andy justifies how to play it and what the long-term record is on playing it to show you that it's still very profitable. So that's one where I'm going to defer to a different capper because he's a specialist on it.
Yeah, he's been crushing him, Mark Zeno, and then Ronald Kabang right now in our top three there on wagertalk.com. Again, Carmine 30 gets you 7 days all access for our guy, Carmine. And Carm 30. Do not forget that, guys, because then I'll get yelled at.
Okay.
Johnny Detroit is always reminding me about the promo codes that I almost always forget. So Carm 30, $30 off 7-day all access pass. Carmine, this is what I got for you for your top five. We already kind of talked about the Carolina Hurricanes. We've kind of already talked about another team on here, but let's go just rapid fire 1 through 5.
So 1 through 5, and again, I'm going to explain them and why I like them. Obviously, the Carolina Hurricanes, I've got it number 1. But these are interchangeable. So please don't get triggered by these, especially if your team is not on this list or farther down on this list. Carolina, I think, as we're heading into the playoffs, are playing extremely well right now. Big game for them tonight against the Bruins as well, too. They'll face the Bruins in 2 of their next 3. So we're going to see probably a preview of a playoff meeting. It could very well be a conference finals meeting. Carolina right now, I think they're built for the playoffs. I've got them at number 1. Dallas, a team that I think quite possibly is the best team in the NHL right now. A very good goaltending from Jake Ottinger. This team looks really good right now. The New York Rangers. The Rangers are number 1 in the league in points right now. I have my third. The reason I have my third is the last week to 10 days, this team hasn't looked good. Their coach has even said he had to call a timeout in the second period of the game yesterday against the New Jersey Devils when they blew a 2-0 lead, and I think we're down 3-2 at one point in that game. I had a 5% play on that one, so I was happy that the Rangers came back and won. But he's not happy about the way his team's playing. They need to tighten the screws. So I've got them at 3 right now. The Colorado Avalanche. Anytime you have Nate McKinnon on your team, um, you're going to win games. This guy is a champion. There's a Stanley Cup winners 2 years ago, of course. And then the surprise, and this is going to surprise everybody, the Florida Panthers, because I think the Florida Panthers are right now coasting towards the playoffs. But here is the schedule for the Florida Panthers, Kel. I'm going to bring it up here. I do have it. I swear I do have it. The Florida Panthers, as much as they're struggling right now, this is how they finish off their season, Kelly. They play the Ottawa Senators tonight, then they go to Boston, and then they're home for 4 games against Ottawa, Columbus, Buffalo, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. At home, 4 games, no travel. That's when they start to amp it up in the final week of the season and get ready for the playoffs and get into the playoffs. And we saw what they did last year. This team can play defense, very good goaltending. They can score. They're going to scare a lot of teams again this year. So the Florida Panthers come in at number 5. Bruins fans, don't hate me, but you guys have a very good team there.
The comment section said, we'll get triggered all right. That's so true. Panthers, boo. You guys are very active tonight. Sorry, Joe, if you're behind the scenes. Joe is behind the scenes. He's manning the Instagram chat so nicely. I will see Joe tomorrow. Actually, just text him and ask what time he lands in Boston. No more Instagram messages. I don't think we have anything else from YouTube right now. Carmine, got 5 or 6 minutes here. Anything you want to leave our audience with?
Yeah. I'm gonna throw a couple of futures at you guys, and these are 2 that I played today as I was going through the futures market, and one that I loaded up for clients just a little while ago. So the one I loaded for clients is the Dallas Stars over 113 and a half points. They're on right now 105 points. So they need 9 points, and the juice on this is minus 110. They need 9 points to cash that ticket. They have 6 games left. But here's the thing. They're in Chicago. They're 3-0 against Chicago this season. They're going to beat Chicago. Then they play in Colorado. That's the toughie because they're 0-3 against Colorado this season. If they can manage anything out of that, I think it would be a bonus. They return home for their final 4 games of the season, so no travel. At home, they face the Buffalo Sabres, Winnipeg Jets, Seattle Kraken, and the St. Louis Blues. Each one of those teams are struggling right now, including, and 3 of them are outside of the playoffs looking in, and the one that's in is Winnipeg, and they're struggling right now. They are 7-2 combined over those 4 teams this season in head-to-head matchups, and they play them at home. I think they win all 4 of those. So if they win the Chicago one, it doesn't matter what happens in the Colorado one. There's 10 points. They finish with 115. You cash that ticket. With that said, also that schedule should give them enough points to win the President's Trophy. And they are second right now to the Rangers. The Rangers are favored to win the President's Trophy, but you can get Dallas at plus 190 right now. And if you look at the Rangers schedule to finish out the season, they're only 1 point ahead. They've got to play in Detroit. Big one. Johnny Detroit, if you're watching this, man, it is a huge game for your Red Wings. They then play the Montreal Canadiens, but they play the New York Islanders twice, a team trying to make the playoffs, the Philadelphia Flyers, and they finish it off with the Ottawa Senators. I think there's a couple losses in that in that schedule for them, and that's just enough to get Dallas over the finish line. So I'm going to take the plus 190.
Awesome stuff from Carmine Bianco at Carmine Bianco WT on Instagram. If you guys are not following, he puts out a ton of free hockey content over there. And yes, of course, I'm pushing that spot because we're trying to build the Instagram channel, guys. Wagertalk Instagram channel, as well as the personal cappers, because that's where videos do very well. Carmine Bianco WT on Twitter as well. Carmine, thank you. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And we'll get you back on here before the hockey playoffs commence and see if there's anything else you really like. Guys, make sure you again head over to the Wagertalk YouTube channel, click the like button, hit the subscribe button. We appreciate all of you guys hanging out with us each and every day here on Game Time with KIV.